Guilt isn't a particularly pleasant experience. However, like all of our emotions, it can have a really powerful and beneficial message for us if we are just capable of tolerating it and deciphering what it is actually trying to say. Now, there is a major difference between guilt and shame, and oftentimes those descriptors are used interchangeably. And one great way that I have heard of differentiating between the two is one that I originally got from Brené Brown. She says that guilt is I have done bad, whereas shame is I am bad. And I suppose it's recognizing, first of all, which actual emotion you are referring to. Guilt is generally indicative of us having done something or said something that is misaligned with the values that we like to think that we have as a person, that is misaligned with the person that we want to be or the way in which we want to live our life. The strange thing is, oftentimes the behaviors or the things that we say which evoke guilt are things that give us a kind of a short term pleasure. And this might include things like bitching about another person, trying to plot some sort of vengeance on another person in your mind, consuming things that you know aren't good for you, partaking in behaviors that don't reflect your values as a person. But as I said, they give you that little short-term dopamine hit, and as a consequence they feel good, and you assume that they are beneficial, that they contribute to your happiness. But yet in the long term you have that pervading feeling of guilt. You don't feel particularly good in your own skin as a consequence. And it's recognizing that this is a powerful message, that what you are doing is not in alignment with the values that you would like to represent you as a person. However, because you're experiencing that short term satisfaction, it can be very difficult to pull away from the behavior, and it can almost become this self perpetuating cycle, because when we feel guilty, we generally want to feel pleasure, we want to escape our experience. So we tend to revert back to the behavior that caused our guilt in the first place. And as I said, it goes round and round in this vicious cycle of behavior, feelings of guilt, feelings of shame, and then back again to the behavior just to feel nice for those brief few seconds. And I suppose the only thing you can begin to do is recognize the connection between the behavior and how you feel in the long term. And this takes a lot of conscious effort, because again, when something makes us feel good short term, we tend to associate it with being something that we really enjoy, that we really like. We don't tend to associate it with the long term consequences. And this is so true of so many of the things that we consume, that we do on a daily basis. You know, the foods that we eat, the habits that we bring with us throughout our day, the way that we utilize our phone. I mean, it includes things like online shopping, like porn, like basically talking about other people behind their back. All of these things which give us that little bit of a kick, which make us feel a little bit better in the moment, but which leave us feeling that little bit empty and vacant afterwards. And it's just recognizing the patterns of your life, recognizing the consequences of your behaviors, and being aware of the impact it has on how you feel about yourself and the way in which you're living your life. And it's so important, I suppose, to have a rough idea of who you want to be as a person, to ask yourself what values you want to live by, because we tend to have this assumption that if we're happy and if we're experiencing pleasure, everything else will fall into place. And yet more and more research is backing up that in order to feel good, we need to live an ethical life, we need to live a life of integrity, we need to contribute, we need to be connected with other people. And yet all of the things that we're doing are bringing us in the opposite direction. We're over reliant on our technology, we are obsessive, we basically take part in anything that takes us away from our emotional experience, that disconnects us from ourselves, whether it be through drinking, whether it be through numbing using your phone or Netflix or whatever it is. We're less and less present, and we need to be in our lives. And I think oftentimes the guilt that we feel after a Netflix binge or a chocolate binge is oftentimes our body and our soul telling us that this isn't what we were put on this earth for. I mean, we are capable of so much more. And it's an opportunity when you experience that guilt to ask yourself, okay, what is actually going on here? How am I living that is incongruent with the person that I want to be in the long run? And the thing is, we have to recognize all of this with compassion, because it's not a case of if this thing happens, it's a case of when. I mean, we're human, we all make mistakes, we all want the instant gratification, we all want the pleasure, we all want the hedonistic happiness. However, that being said, we need to balance that out with meaning and purpose and fulfillment. We also, more than ever before, need to live ethically. I mean, we need to make a conscious effort to be better human beings, to look after our planet, to look after other humans, to look after our families, and to look after ourselves. And yet we're not doing that. We're on autopilot, we're unhappy, we're dissatisfied with our lives, and we're wondering why. We're chasing more money, we're chasing down all these rabbit holes, such as how we look, or how we come across to other people, things that don't really matter and have no significant impact on our overall life satisfaction, as opposed to focusing on doing the next good thing. And so many of our behaviors come from a place of fear, from a place of self-loathing, from a lack of self-acceptance, from a place of resentment. And it's just recognizing that you don't have to be fueled by those emotions. They are all messengers about where you are in life. And if you can dissect them a little bit, if you can kind of make a list of what values you want to live your life by, and then start doing one small thing at a time that brings you closer to that person. Because again, it's not about never getting things wrong, it's not about completely abandoning all of the pleasures that are part and parcel of modern living, but it's about being conscious about your choices and trying to do small little things that become significant over time, being more discerning in your choices and trying to navigate your way towards a better way of living, using the smallest little steps possible, because we don't want to overwhelm ourselves. We just want to live a little bit more consciously each day, and that is done by making one decision at a time, taking one little step at a time, being that little bit more self-aware, being that little bit more aware of other people, and just living that little bit more consciously. So next time you feel guilt, perhaps instead of, swallowing a beer or a bit of chocolate or zoning out in Netflix or whatever it is on your phone, ask yourself, okay, is this telling me something about how I'm living my life? And if so, maybe I might want to sit down and ask myself where it is that I want to end up, where it is that I want to go, and what I want my life to have stood for. If you'd like to work with me on any emotional content, or indeed on any aspect of your life which you feel isn't reflective of where it is that you would like to be, get in touch with me on the website. It's fundamentals.ie.